So there is a bill that is going in front of the House and the Senate. Let me see if it actually passed. It was House Bill 2528, which, let's see. Yes, summary is passed. So this is an interesting one. So House Bill 2528 charges drug dealers with murder for overdose death.
Oh.
So it passed the House and the Senate.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I was looking in my addiction of Google that there are people charged with murder. Let's see here. In the news, just in the last couple days, there was one guy March 5th that was formally dismissed, but now they're reopening the charges. There is another person who just got charged with murder, and another person who was selling laced heroin, which is basically heroin with fentanyl. That's what you see most of the time on the overdoses right now.
Most overdoses are with fentanyl.
Yeah. And now we are going to be charging people with murder, which, you know, they sell the drugs come into the country. So, I mean, at what point, where is personal liability? I mean, versus, you know, if I decide I'm going to shoot heroin, I'm shooting it. Nobody's holding me down. Nobody's sticking a needle in my arm.
But you have an addiction, right?
Yeah.
And isn't there some loss of, isn't the definition of addiction that you lose some of your free will, that there's impaired control?
Yeah, but how do we charge? I mean, it's like, do we charge God for making opiate poppies in the first place? You know, I mean, at what level does it finally stop for accountability?
Well, the other thing is, you know, if you're buying heroin and you don't know it's laced with fentanyl, and you overdose because the person who sold it to you gave you a product that you didn't know you were purchasing, is there some liability there that the dealer gave you fentanyl-laced heroin?
You know, it's funny because we're so focused on fentanyl because it's a pharmaceutical and it will kill you. It will cause your respiratory to shut down and you die. But I know up until the middle of last year, people were buying carfentanil out of China by the kilo. And it was coming into the United States legally.
Oh, carfentanil, yeah.
Carfentanil, yeah, that's it. Carfentanil, which is way stronger than fentanyl.
It's about 100 times more potent than fentanyl, yeah.
And they were selling it by the kilo out of China for $1,700 online.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So it's like, okay, we'll get a kilo of that. Now we'll cut it with 5,000 kilos of heroin.
Yeah.
And now you got the strongest crap out on the street. And the sad and the crazy thing, you know, we've said this before, is, you know, in the addiction community of heroin, somebody overdoses, everybody first thought they'd do is, oh, that must have been great shit, and they couldn't handle it. Where can I go get some?
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing that a death actually increases sales.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And
it's just the insanity of the illness, isn't it?
Yeah. But now, you know, where is personal liability with people deciding to do drugs? Is there personal liability? Or
I think when you first start, there is personal liability. I mean, you do make a choice. But once the addiction takes hold, there is an impairment in choice. Although it's paradoxical, because I think that you always do have a choice. I mean, for example, there is some degree of choice. For example, if you're addicted to heroin, you have a choice about whether you use in front of a policeman or whether you maybe go around the corner and use somewhere where you won't be seen. So there is some choice about that. But there is this loss of choice when you're in the middle of the addiction about using. That's the definition of addiction. But then I think that there is always the choice that you can always choose to ask for help and get into recovery. That choice is always available to you as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering at what point are people, let's say the police, the district attorney's office, you know, they pull you over, you're under the influence of an opiate, whatever, so they're going to charge you with a DUI.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point are people going to say, okay, well, make a deal with the DA, tell us who you got the drugs from.
Mm-hmm.
And then they could go over and try to link up, because there was a case here that was on Google today where they had tested this heroin through a couple different overdoses and found a specific chemical percentage mixture, so they know it was the same heroin from the same person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when they found the dealer and they busted him, they tested his stuff. They found that it was the same, and they linked him to these overdoses, and now they're charging him with multiple murder.
Wow.
So
wow. What do you think about it?
I don't know how they're even going to make it stick. I mean, it's like saying, oh, I bought a Coke that had 30% sugar in it. How do I know that 30% sugar didn't come from John Doe over here, Jane Doe over here? How do you really prove it unless there's a hair follicle or some crazy...
But if they can prove it, I do think that a dealer is culpable in some ways for the murders, because the person with addiction truly is a victim of addiction, and the person who's a dealer is definitely a predator who's basically preying off the vulnerability of their customer who suffers from addiction and who's lost some of their free will and lost their ability to make sane decisions. That's the definition of addiction.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is some responsibility on the part of the person who sells this to the victims of addiction.
Okay, well, if you're a cartel member out there, beware, because they may be coming after you and charging you with 500 counts of multiple murder, or if you're a pharmaceutical corporation, maybe just the same.
Look, Mom, no hands!